Okay, welcome to the Picture Yourself at Pixton Pro Icebreaker activity. Right now, you're already logging in, Linda, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have one participant so far who is on track. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with a short poll. And as other people join in, we'll see if they can contribute to the poll. If you wanna check the chat pod, there's a link to a poll everywhere question. And it's going to ask, what was your favorite comic growing up?
So when I go to the poll everywhere?
Yes.
Okay.
And the responses will show here in a word cloud. So we've got some answers coming in. Marmaduke, Dennis the Menace, Scooby-Doo, Alvin and Hobbes, Garfield, Peanuts. So that's cool. That's cool. So we're going to have some discussion pieces that we're going to jump into. It offers in the handout, in the activities document, it offers for you not to put your name next to it if you don't want to. Since we don't have a large crowd, I think it will be easy. But we'll go ahead and move on to some of the discussion questions so that if we want to share some experiences. So if you check in the chat box, there's going to be a link to our activities document. And here's where we're going to do all of our collaborative elements during this webinar. So we've already gone ahead and done our poll. And so we'll look at these short answer questions. So the first question, if you just want to enter an answer, it doesn't have to be long, or if you don't have one, if there's something similar, but can you recall a time when a comic made an impression? From page to page, the fact that I could, and that kind of got me into reading books. So it's thanks to Garfield that I now am an avid reader. So that's the time when a comic made an impression on me. Does anyone have any stories or thoughts that they'd like to share on when a comic made an impression on them?
Sorry, my computer messed up for a second.
You're okay. You're okay. Welcome, Louisa. I see you've joined. We're just doing some icebreaker activities. So if you want to check the chat pod, there's a link to the poll everywhere question that we have. So if you want to go ahead and enter some answers, it was, what was your favorite comic growing up? And then after that, there's a link to our activities shared collaborative document. And we are now looking at these short answer questions. We're having some short discussions about comics and sometimes something meaning that they hold for us and things like that.
Can you send the link for the shared again? When my computer turned off, thank you.
No problem.
It left. Okay, so it says if I can't get to it. Can I just answer in the chat?
Sure.
Okay.
Louisa, are you having that problem as well?
Yeah, I have the same problem.
Okay, let me go in there.
See if this link works.
It says that the file doesn't exist.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, that's what mine said too. That's okay. We'll send you answers in the chat.
I've pasted a new link in there. Does that link work?
Oh, let me check that one. Yes, I think that one. Well, that opened up your handout.
Okay.
Here, try this one.
So does that one say picture yourself at Pixton Pro activities?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where we're at with our icebreaker question.
Oh, okay.
And so the first question was just, can you recall a time when a comic made an impression on you? And then the second one we'll take a look at is, what do you like about comics? Is there a reason that you like to read them? Hello, everyone who's joining us. If you just want to check the chat pod, we do have a link to a poll everywhere. It's also here in our document. And if you check the chat pod, that document link should be there as well. This is our activities collaborative document. And right now we have answered this poll question. If you guys want to join, the responses are here. We can refer back to it. And we are looking at these short answer questions, putting in some information about what we like about comics, a time when a comic maybe made an impression on us, political comic, cartoon, Sunday morning, and then what was your favorite comic growing up and why? And so these are the responses we have so far in our Poll Everywhere account. We've got some Marmaduke, some Garfield, some Peanuts, some Dennis the Menace, some Calvin and Hobbes, and some Scooby. So, and again, we've got a screen image of our word cloud up there right now. So if you guys want to refer back to that, if you entered a question there, you can now, the third question, kind of write why that was your favorite comic growing up. I just want to take a minute to remind everyone, if you haven't already logged into Pixton, please use this time to go ahead and log in. We will be creating a comic as we go along. So now's the perfect time. If you have any trouble logging in or have any questions, you can direct it to the chat pod and we can try to troubleshoot that before we jump into the start of the webinar. And there is also a link to the handout that we'll be referencing along the way, and we will also be showing you our advanced organizer along the way. So it looks like some of the things that comics made an impression on us was Sunday mornings, comics, donuts, so like family time, childhood memories maybe. I didn't like to read, so my parents would get me comic books. That's a great segue into reading. Once you see how the stories can come to life, it tends to make you want to pick up another book or another story and read more. And what do you like about comics? Images with messages, they get straight to the point. And that's true, you have to be very creative in a limited amount of space and time. So colors and characters, different styles. So there's always something to grab the attention and draw the eye in. And what was your favorite comic growing up and why? I see we have some Scooby-Doo, Recess. I know that like my grandfather, he was in the Air Force and he was reading a Peanuts comic and it went over multiple days. The punchline wasn't in the 3-panel comic, and that really caught his attention because it made him come back each day to see what was going to happen. And over the course of the week, the punchline actually evolved. And so he has been a huge Snoopy fan ever since. Okay. And again, if anyone has any questions or if you're having trouble logging into Pixton, feel free to direct to the group chat and we'll try to help you get logged in. But we will have our Do activities be creating comics along the way. Okay, it looks like our word cloud is getting bigger. Calvin, Family Circus, some more Garfield. Obsessed. Sorry, not that one. Cats. I'm obsessed with cats. Is that a comment? Family Circus. This is looking great. So yeah, so just to get our juices flowing on maybe if we think of why we like comics and what draws us to comics, we can kind of use this information to create our own comics and see what elements we can include. Style, comedy, maybe getting to the point, the direct messages, the strong imagery. And with that, we'll go ahead and use some of these elements to jump into becoming our pros at creating comics and Pixton.
Okay. It looks like it's about 12 Mountain Standard Time, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Picture Yourself a Pixton Pro. My name is Alicia Gerstner. I'm a student at the University of Colorado, Denver in the Information and Learning Technologies program, and I'm also an instructional designer at John Deere. And I have my colleagues with me here today to help present. I'll turn it over to them for their introductions.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Carr. I am a high school English teacher in Denver, Colorado, and I am about to graduate from this program.
And I am also getting close to graduating from the program, not as close as Rebecca. I am an e-learning specialist at Piedmont Airlines, and I also work as an instructional technologist at Salisbury University. So I'm in and out of Canvas doing this kind of stuff.
Great. So again, we want to welcome everyone to today's webinar and thank you for taking the time to join us today. A couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. If you can please mute your audio when you're not speaking, that will help avoid any background noise. Also, if you can take a moment to locate the chat feature and the raise hand feature in your Zoom tool, we're going to be using both of those today. If you have any questions throughout, please send them through the chat. We'll be monitoring that regularly. If my screen maybe is too small or you want to resize it, if you hover over at the top of your screen, you should see a drop down for options, and there's some different options there, so you can kind of play with that to get your screen the right size for you. And if you haven't already, please log into Pixton. In a few minutes, we're going to be turning it over to you to do some practice in Pixton. So if you can get logged in, that would be great. The goals for today's webinar is to familiarize you with Pixton, and by the end, you will be able to create your own comic. So with that, a quick question. If you can, please in the poll or in the Zoom tool, please raise your hand if you've never used Pixton before. So if this is your first time using Pixton, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll give that a few seconds. All right, I see a few hands. Looks good. So at least 4 or 5 of you, 5 now. This is a new tool for you, so we're really excited to share it with you. So to begin, what is Pixton? It is a website where you can go and you can design your own comic. It's really customizable, so you can change characters' expressions, colors, all kinds of things. It's a robust tool, so we're gonna go through many of the features with you here today. How can you use Pixton? I want you to start thinking about that. And as you do, I want to direct your attention to our activities document. So if you were in when the icebreaker was taking place, you have seen this document, but we'll send a link out through the chat feature as well. And if you scroll down a bit, there is a space for a connect activity. So during this webinar, please contribute ideas where you might use Pixton in your work or personal life. You can feel free to start adding as I'm talking right now through a couple ideas for you. And then throughout the webinar, please continue to come back and add anything you think of. We're gonna revisit this section towards the end of the webinar. The way that we're gonna use Pixton today is we're gonna pretend that we are teachers and we are using Pixton to illustrate the concept of CARP for our students. So if you are a teacher, Pixton can be a great way to illustrate different concepts or kind of bring life to something that you're trying to work with your students on. At the same time, you could have your students use Pixton to summarize something that they may have learned. I'm an instructional designer. I could use Pixton maybe to storyboard some of my ideas that I want to share with my subject matter experts. There's a feature in Pixton where you can create a poster. So you can think of the ways you can use a poster. You can advertise events and do different things. So continue to think on that and add to this document throughout the webinar. I also want to direct your attention to our handout. So again, we'll send that through the chat. This is a really detailed document. You'll have it to reference after the webinar, and you don't even need to really take many notes because we have even more detail than we're going to cover today in this document. For example, this navigation basics section at the top kind of goes through all the menus in Pixton. Due to time, we won't have time to go through all of that, but it's here for your reference afterwards. What we are going to cover today, Comic Essentials, I'm going to talk through that in just a moment. Rebecca is going to share how to customize your comic, and then Haley's going to wrap it up with some plus practices and publishing and sharing. And what we mean by plus practices, there is the option for a paid account in Pixton. It's about $8 a month, and you get extra features. So she'll touch on some of those at that time. If you can't see the outline in your handout there, you can go to Tools and Document Outline. And you can click on any of these sections as we're talking to navigate through the handout. So with that, I'll just pause for a couple seconds to see if there are any questions before we get started. Okay, I'm going to switch back to our Prezi, which is our advanced organizer. There's a link to that in the activities document if you do want to take a look at that as well. So that brings us to Comic Essentials. We're going to add characters, backgrounds, props, speech bubbles. I'm going to show you how to resize and rotate your items, and also the very important undo button. So let's get into Pixton. Okay, I'm going to make this bigger. Here we have the home page of Pixton. When you first log in, you'll see some comics by other members of the site. You can feel free to view some of those. There's some top authors. We're going to start by clicking this pencil icon up in the top left. That's how we're going to start creating our first comic. When you click that button, it brings you to your comics, and it brings you to those that are unpublished. So we have a couple here that we haven't published. I could click on them to continue editing, but we're going to start with Create New. And that brings you to a Choose Layout screen. So you have the options of comic strip, storyboard, graphic novel. I can click to see more options. There's that poster I mentioned. There's a photo story, which can be kind of cool. Just notice this plus symbol up at the top right. That means those are the paid account options. So you'll have to have the paid account unless you just signed up for Pixton recently. You have about a week time frame where they give you a free trial of some of those features. So if you still are in that week time frame, might be a good time to check those out. For today's project, we're going to start in the comic strip. So I'm going to select that, and it asks, do you want to go through the beginner mode, which is a wizard that kind of guides you through the process, or do you want to start in the advanced mode, which is really flexible and you can do things as you wish? Since you all are going to become Pixton pros today, we're going to go straight to the advanced section. All right, so it loads up a blank panel for us to start on. And here we are. At the top, you can change your title. We'll do that more towards the end. So in the section for Comic Essentials, we're going to focus on these menu items to the top left. They're the gold menu items. If you hover over them, it tells you what they do. Add a character, add a speech bubble, add a prop, and add a background. We're going to start by adding a character. So I'll click that. And it brings up my characters. So those are characters that I have used in the past. you can hover and choose to select preset characters if you like. And that is the library of characters that Pixton has created. And there's a lot of them. So if I use this button to the bottom right, I can scroll and keep going through. If there's something in particular I have in my mind that I want to find, I can use the search down at the bottom and type something. And there it gives me some astronaut options. Okay, I'm going to go back to my characters because I've used these before and I know which I want to use. So let's take this lady here. And what do you notice when you first bring that character in? She's got a box around her, right? And on that box, there's hollow circles and there's shaded squares. If you hover, it tells you what they do. Drag or double click to resize. So that's simple. Just click and drag, resizes it. And then it says drag or double click to rotate. So you can also play with it that way if you like. I'm going to make her a little bit smaller. Also notice when you do have the character selected, which means when that box is around her, those menu items on the top left are different. It's not those gold ones that we saw before. It's customizing your character. So those are some options that Rebecca's going to get into in just a minute. In order to get back to our other options that we had, I'm just going to click off of that character, and there we go. I'm going to click to add one more character. And again, I'm going to click and drag to resize her. Click off, and we have our two characters. We're off to a good start. Now let's add a speech bubble. I just clicked on that. And what do you notice about this speech bubble? It doesn't have that little tail that kind of connects it to a person. So I'm going to click to select it. And again, Pixton is very user-friendly. If you just hover over it, it's going to tell you drag to attach to character. So I am going to drag, and I'm also going to click and drag it down a bit. Okay, so I want the bubble to appear next to this character. And I want to type something in there. So I'm just going to simply double click inside and start typing. Okay, so what do you notice now? That speech bubble is on top of my character. We don't want that. So again, just click and drag, and we're good. Let's skip props for 1 second and let's add our background. I'm going to click here, and you could hover and choose some backgrounds from the Pixton community, or you can use the preset backgrounds that Pixton has for you. We're going to stay with the presets, and you can scroll through the many different scenes that they offer you. If you hover, it kind of tells you what that scene is. So that's a church, supermarket, and you notice these little ellipse buttons at the bottom. That means there's more to it than just that. So if I click, I have all these different scenes for a supermarket. I can even use the arrow to scroll, and I just use that back arrow to go back. Oh, I accidentally selected one, so I'm going to just click back to my backgrounds. I want these people to be in a school, so I'm going to click the school background and click the classroom. You might notice something now that I've selected a background. My characters have changed positions. So that's pretty cool. Pixton kind of recognizes your background and positions your characters how they naturally might fit into that scene. Rebecca's going to show you in a bit how you could still change their positions if you wanted to. So our last thing before you're going to start practicing is adding a prop. So that's this icon here. I'm going to click it, and it's similar to what we've seen before. The difference with props is that you have categories over here to the right. So let's say I want to look at holiday props. There we go. If I want to look at nature props, you can see some of those. Again, you can also search at the bottom. So I'm going to add an apple to our scene. and it's kind of hovering there. We don't want that. So let's put it down on this book just by clicking and dragging. Let's make it big. Oops, let's say it's too big. We want to undo that. This is that very important undo button right down here to the bottom left. So I'm going to click undo, and there it is on the book. So that is our first panel, which is pretty exciting. And to save it, there's this green check mark right here. So I'm going to save it, and we're going to go back. So this is what we just covered, Comic Essentials, adding a character, background, prop, speech bubble. We resized, rotated, and saw the undo button. Now it's your turn. So the first activity for you in Pixton, if you're not already logged in, please do so now. You're going to add your first panel with a background, at least one character, a speech bubble with text, and if you have time, go ahead and throw a prop in there as well. We're going to give you about 4 minutes to do this. And if you finish early, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And if we see that everyone's done, we'll go ahead and continue. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in through the chat and we'll try to help you out. All right. So go ahead and get into Pixton and start creating your comic.
Finish early and you think of more activities to add to our Connect activity, feel free to go ahead and add your thoughts there as well.
Yep, thank you, Haley. And also a good add if you, I saw this in the chat, if you are following along in the handout, we just covered pages 3 to 7. So if you need to reference something while you're working in Pixton, those are the pages you'll want to go to.
And if anyone's having any problems or has any questions, feel free to ping us on here or in the chat and we'll see if we can help. I see some people adding to the Connect activity. Thank you. Thank you. I also see a few hands going up in the chat or in the raise hand area.
Yep, that's great.
We'll have it just about 1 more minute to go ahead and finish up these goals for this part of the do activity. But don't worry if you don't get a chance to finish, you might be able to do some more of it in the next do activity, in the final do activity, or even after the webinar, because once you've published and shared your comic, you can always go back and edit, update, add. So don't feel like whatever you do now is final and set in stone, even when sharing it out to people.
Looks like a good number of you are finishing up, so I think we're good to continue. Rebecca, you're on mute.
Well, that's not a great way to get started. Hi, guys. So did anybody have any trouble? Anybody want to share any difficulties they may have had? Okay. So I'm guessing that we did pretty well with our background, with our first activities. Everyone created a background, a character, a speech bubble, and at least one prop. So the next thing we're going to do is begin customizing our comics. We're going to add a new panel. We're going to change colors and gradients, expressions, adjust positions, and send elements backward and forward in a layering process. So let's go ahead and get on in there. And so this is the comic that we began together with Alicia. I'm going to show you how first to change the title because we did not do that originally. So it said untitled, and I just went in and double-clicked and just typed in carp, since that is what our topic is today on our comic. It's just that simple to change the title. Very easy to do. The next thing we're going to do is add a new panel. And when you click this little plus sign here, it brings up the pop-up of add a panel. So we'll just click there. And it will automatically build the same panel. And you'll notice that it is exactly the same except for the text bubble. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is layer our figures. And this is on page 8 in your handout. I'm going to move this person out from behind the desk to make our comic a little more dynamic. So the first thing I do is just click on her. And you see these familiar menus that we've seen before. And down at the bottom, we have the send to the back or bring forward. I'm just going to click bring forward, and that brings her forward one step, but you might notice that she's a book bisecting her. So we're going to hit it again, and still her hand is behind the apples, so I'm going to hit it one more time, and that should bring her all the way to the front. Once we've done that, then we can really start getting in there and making these characters our own. We can add a little personality. So at the top, or at the middle of page 8 and the top of page 9, it talks about how we're going to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is click on our character again, and I'm going to start using this side menu. I'm going to hit Edit Expression, and that brings up 2 options down at the bottom, Preset Poses and Preset Expressions. We're going to start with our preset expressions and look at the facial expressions we can use. And there are just a ton of them in here. So as we go through, we're just going to choose one that we think would be good for our character. I like this sort of blushing, smiling one, so we'll use that one. And you can do that for all characters, and there are lots and lots of different options. The next thing we're going to do is change her body position. So since she's sitting on nothing for now, I think we ought to change her into something else. So we're going to click on the preset poses, and this is on page 10 in your handout. You click there, and it gives you several pages of really great positions that they can get into. So we're going to just choose one that we like. I think I'd like her to be sort of cheering here, and maybe we'll change this character the same way, just clicking on the character, clicking on the expressions, and then clicking on the preset poses. And you can have that character doing anything. Maybe I'll have her dancing in our scene. Once you've done that, once you've chosen a position, then you can actually really customize then. You can click on the character once more, click on the expressions once more, and then you can touch any part of this character to actually move that body part around. So let's say I want her doing kind of a high kick, then I can move each body part. I can even move the feet individually. Also, one of the really cool things I can do is, you notice if I hover over her hand, I get the drag or press and hold. If I press and hold, it will bring up a menu, it should bring up a menu of hand shapes that you can change. I'm not really sure why it's not doing it right now, but probably, oh, there we go. It brings up a menu of hand shapes. And so I can give her little jazz hands if I want. I can do any number of things so that she's much more dynamic than she was before. And one more thing we can do is click on like her body, and you see that little arrow comes in, and that gives me the opportunity to turn her around so that she's in a different position on the screen. So once you've done that and you have these characters in the positions you like, you might say, you know, this baseball cap sporty thing doesn't really go along with the dancing. Maybe I want to change what my character looks like. To do that, we click on the background, click on the character, and then right click. and it brings up a menu that says swap character. And you get the same character menu you had before with all the presets or your own characters. I'm going to choose this character for one of them and maybe a slightly different character for this one. I think I'll go with her. And so it doesn't change their positions, it just changes the characters. The next thing that we can do to start to personalize this is zoom in and zoom out. Our characters seem like they're a little crushed in their environment, so I'm going to use this slider over here to give them a little more room, make this background a little bigger so that they have plenty of places to be. Once I've done that, then I can really start customizing the rest of it. I can remove props, I can do lots of different things. I think I'm going to get rid of this map because it's kind of in the way here. So I'm just going to click on the map itself and then click on the trash can. It is that simple. I'm going to do that for both of them. Then also I can move things around. This chalkboard is kind of hidden behind one of our characters, so I'm going to pull it up, scooch it over a little bit so that we have a little more room in our scene. You need to be sure you either remove all the little props or move them up. I'm just going to get rid of them for now. So it's just that simple to change the positions of things in there. Now we have this word bubble just sort of hanging out here. And I don't think I want to have it there. I think maybe I want to write on the board. So I'm going to scooch it over here. I'm going to edit the text, and I'm going to put the different types of carp in there, the different parts of it. So contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity. But now it looks like a speech bubble instead of being something written on the chalkboard. Just scooch it up a little bit. And then I'm going to change the color. Click there and I can edit the color of the text. I'm going to make it white. And I can click on the bubble again. And it brings up the menu of the bubble shapes. I'm going to click here. Going to change it from a bubble to text. And so now it looks a lot more like it's written on the board. And there's one more thing. I don't want this little tail. So if you hover, you can either drag it to attach to a different character, or you can detach it from a character. I'm just going to detach that now. The last thing I'm going to show you on customization is how you can, is on page 12, and it's how you can change the colors. Everything in here can be recolored. I'm going to start by showing you how to click on a character. And do you see this little palette that shows up? Click there. I'm going to click and hold on the shirt. And I can change her shirt or her pants or any other thing into lots of different colors. So click and hold, make her pants pink, anything you want. You can even change hair color, eye color, if you want to get that close in. So that's the first thing. You can change their clothing and every other color. And the background also you can do. Once more, down here at the bottom, you see that palette. The palette always indicates color changes. So here you hit background color, and then you can make it any one of these solid colors you'd like. And once you've done that, you have an option of this background gradient that is right next to it. And that gives you a little more dynamic use of color within the background. So those are our basic parts of changing the comic and making it your own. Does anyone have any questions for me about what we just went through? And again, that all starts on page 8 and goes through page 12 of the handout. So the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding to our own personal activity, our own personal comic. Here is your next do activity. I'd like you to add one new panel and make the following changes. Send an object forward or backward, or change a character's expression. If you have time, we would love it if you could also change a character's hand position or change the color of your character's shirt or any other body part that you're interested in. So if you guys, we're going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and do that now.
Once again, if you finish early, feel free to raise your hand, and if everyone's done, we can advance to earlier than the allotted time. And also, if you finish early, again, feel free to contribute to the activity document, the Connect activity. I see a lot of hands going up. It looks like you guys are moving along like pros already. Okay, if you guys are about ready, we'll get ready to move on unless there's any questions anyone or troubles anyone is having that they'd like to share or ask or get help with. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on then. It looks like most of you have been able to kind of get this part of the activity done. Again, if you haven't, you can always come back, polish it later, edit it. Even after it's published and shared, you can always go back and edit. So now that you've, sent your objects back and forth, changed your character's expression, you've gotten to customize it a little bit, maybe change some colors, whatever you had time for. We're going to look at some of the things that you could do with the pro practices, which we won't cover it for too long, too in depth, because if you don't have access to it, you won't really be able to utilize it. But we just want to let you guys know that it's there. So an example of what you can do is I've already added a new panel. I've gone ahead and added another panel here. And if I wanted to use some of the pro things that I have available, I can make a prop set that I can save. So let's say we've added some items to this desk and we want to reuse it because we're going to make this comic, a weekly series for a class or something. I can select everything and group it to make it a prop set. And then when you go into add prop, you'll notice that the dropdown now has my prop sets because I've done this before. So here's one where I've added a globe to the desk, for example. But the nice thing is that even when you select it and add it, you can always break apart the prop set and remove things around, save things, like resave it as another prop set, or just go ahead and undo it, delete it if you decide you do not want it. And that's on page 13 that we're starting these Pro Plus practices. But just like with the prop sets, you can also do that with a background. So if you invest some time creating this nice scene for your characters to be in, and you really want to save that for future use, maybe not even in this comic, but all the work you invested in it, might as well go ahead and save it. You can go ahead and save it as a prop set, which is like the save scene as background. And then when you go to your add background, again, you will see my backgrounds, and it'll have all of the backgrounds that you've created and saved. So I have one here where I had birds and I liked the formation. I had the sun I liked. I went ahead and kept it. So you have those options. The other thing you can do is you can upload your own images, which can be really nifty if you want to really customize what you have going on in the background. So you can see I've already uploaded some images here, but it's basically you press an upload image, or you select the image you want, you name it, and you save it in the gallery here. So it won't be in your background or props. It will actually be in a gallery here under add image. So I'm going to go ahead and select one that I've already added, and it's this nice big carp. So I'm going to resize, which we've already learned how to do. And that's going to be like the punchline to our comic. It's contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity, not a fish. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. But let's say we wanted to work on this as a whole group. Another thing you can do is make this a team comic where you can have multiple people making adjustments, adding to it at one time. The trick with that is it's a Pixton Plus membership level ability, and you can only share it with other Pixton Plus membership levels. So if I wanted to share it with you, I couldn't unless you also had the Plus account. The other thing you can do that's different is you've noticed as we went along maybe that there's these edit settings up here. If you click on it, it gives you options on how to show different things. One of the things that it allows you to do if you have the Pro is the show animation controls. So you can check that, and then when you go back to edit the panel, you'll notice that you have this extra ability down here to add an animation. It's adding a keyframe, adding you would start the keyframe here, move the hand to another position, and then when it plays, it'll make the hand move, for example. So it's a great way to have people wave, walk, glow, if you want a glowing laboratory equipment, things like that. So those are just some of the things you can do with Pixton Pro and Pixton Plus. And again, these were pages 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 on the handout, where we detailed these more, but we didn't want to lose time here, especially if the majority of you don't have a Pixton Plus account. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and publish and share our comic. And this is part 4 on the handout, starting on page 19. Basically what we want to do is, so I'm going to click off. I'm going to go ahead and save the panel. And I have this option down here to go ahead and publish. I can also download it or save it for later, or print it straight to the printer, which I don't need to download it yet. Maybe I want to make some more changes to it. I just want people to view it online, so I don't need to download it, but I do want to publish it and make it visible. So the publish screen, I'm just going to touch on some of these again, but if there's things that you find you might use, you can always go back and look at this more. It's detailed a little more in the handout, but we've already named it CARP, but we could also change it here. If we wanted to change, we realized we had something with the same name and we want to go ahead and update it. You can make it part of a series. So if you're doing a comic book kind of series, you would just select the comic that you want it to come after. So this comic will precede the one we just made. Under your tags and categories, it automatically wants you to select at least one category. Here we've got personal. I'm going to go ahead and make it educational. You can select up to 2 categories for searching on Pixton. And then sharing. One of the cool things they have here is this publication date. So let's say you're doing it weekly for a class and you want it to publish every Wednesday. You can go ahead and set the date for this comic to publish on the next Wednesday, and it'll remain out there and be done and ready to go, and you can be out of the country and the comic will publish while you're not there. And remixes. Remixes allows others to take the comic that you have created and modify them. It will not affect your original. Your original will stay the same, but they can make changes to it. So that's a great way to kind of share and have people use your comic if you don't have the Pixton Plus account where you have the team comic, but you will have multiple versions floating around. So we also have, you can set the language, you can set a rating if you want to put warnings in there because it's for a history class and you might have a bloody war reenactment. So there's all these different things you can do, but we're going to go ahead and publish now. And you'll see that one of the first things they have here is a link to the comic. So we're going to ask you guys to publish your comic and put that link in our activities document where we have the matrix for everyone to put their Pixton comic that they've been working on today in. But you'll also notice that you have all of these other options. Many of them you might recognize, posting to Facebook, Twitter, email, but you can also embed, and this is where you would actually hit remix on another person's comic if they have made it remixable so that you can edit it. Okay, so we'll just take like 2 minutes to go ahead and polish your comic, publish it, and get it in that Google document. And we'll also come back and take a look at some of the Connect activities. Okay. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Then we'll come back to this Connect activity. And here in this activity document, again, the link is in the chat pod if you didn't have it open already. So if you want to put your name and your link here, I'll go ahead and put our team's comic here. Just copy that. I'll put us as the Pixton Pros. And here's the link to our comic. So from this Google Doc, if you guys want to go see what anybody else did, again, we could go back and edit this later. So even what you paste here doesn't necessarily have to be your final document. So if you guys want to go ahead and kind of wrap up the changes that you've made, publish it and post the link in here. And then while you guys are publishing the links, I'm going to take a look at some of the Connect activities that people have put in here. And again, if something comes to you, you can always come back and add to this. But it looks like some people are thinking about how they might use it and that they might present historical events. And that's great because they have such a big library. You can do things like that. Review a main concept from a previous lesson. Explaining the day's objective with a short, maybe fun, straight to the point comic. So some of the things that we've noticed that we like about comics, we can incorporate here and maybe impart that on the next generation with our own comics. And again, I see, oh, this is great. There are some links going up. Everyone's, okay, you guys are adding some columns and putting your stuff up there. This is fantastic, guys. You're doing a great job.
Yes, thank you.
So just, are there any questions or final thoughts about more Connect activities, how it might be used? We used it as our invitation. I don't know if you guys noticed. That's how we created our invite that we sent out to everyone. This is great. You get to go check out everyone's comments. But yeah, are there any questions, concerns that you have about Pixton, anything that we can help with now? No?
It's a quiet group.
We're getting some no, yeah. So everyone's a pro, right? Everyone's doing good. Raise your hand if you're a pro. Everyone's in the chat. Well, we do have one more thing for you guys to do. If you could click this post-webinar survey link and go ahead and fill it out. We have a few questions. Your feedback is important to us. You'll notice if you, all right, on the advanced organizer, we finished our comic. You guys have pasted your due activity, and now we have the survey. So if you guys could go ahead and complete the survey, your thoughts, your feedback, it's a learning experience for us. We can make our next presentation better with it. And again, that link is here at the end of the activities document, the collaborative document. And so that's becoming a Pixton Pro. You guys are all pros now. You can go in and change things around as needed. Our emails are on the handout with our information at the bottom. So if you have any further questions or want to pick your brain about something that maybe we could help guide you through, I can also point out that if you are looking for help, there is a help option with how-to videos. And for example, animation, I didn't screen cap animation because it would be so long to go through each step, but they actually offer some quick tips on how to do things right here in Pixton. So if there's other things you're looking for, we do have a link to it on our handout, the how-to section, the help section. So really there are resources. We are a resource for you if there's any questions you have or anything you want to try. And final words or thoughts, anyone? You can express it in a comic and post it to us. This is great. So now we're gonna go ahead and conclude this unless there's anything else that anyone else would like to inject. Questions? Or?
Thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, we really appreciate everyone's time today. We hope you've enjoyed our webinar, and feel free to contact us with any questions.
We're going to check out your survey responses and check out all of your awesome comics.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.